Good afternoon. I thank the General Attorney's Office and the Prosecutor's Office of Holguín. I now will refer to illegal business, a crime that is quite recent in our legal practice, and it was introduced 20 years ago in our criminal code. Negotiation, we're always negotiating. You negotiate since children cry to get food or because they're hungry. We negotiate, and these negotiations have legal consequences. Those law will, and in terms of criminal, we're talking about criminal goods. The criminal law must protect legal goods, and in the case of tourist associations, legal goods include public function, the impartiality of officials, the transparency and accountability in the exercise of public administration or public service and civil service, but this could create a new crime. We here include the crimes by public officials. We sometimes have a mixture in what is an economic crime or crime by
definida desde el punto de vista como economía planificada.
In theory, there is a background or forbidden negotiations which appeared in the law of the Indies, in the criminal code of the 1800s, the code of 1936, and in 1979 with the first socialist code. This was eliminated from the criminal code. With a new society, the possibility of a public official to be corrupt and to take part in illegal negotiations cannot be possible. But in the Constitution of 1976, there were properties that were inherited by small farmers, and then we introduced the self-employed workers or contractors, and a new type of negotiation emerged. Concerning the characteristics of negotiations, it's a technique, a process that is not only a mechanism to provide solutions, but to create something that is superior and that goes beyond the individual capabilities of a person. We must be clear when a negotiation that violates the laws has a criminal nature, because there are ways to solve these problems through arbitration and others. The word comes from negocium, which is the opposite of idleness, where people reflected, discussed, and negotiated. In terms of criminal law, it becomes transcendent when a legal good is damaged. Public office can only be damaged by those who have actual interaction with that administration, and therefore we're referring to civil servants or public officials. In comparative law, and like the professor from Panama said earlier, and the professor from Spain also said, although there are reservations to the conventions, you must implement it. So in all cases, judges can incorporate arguments, legal arguments that are part of these conventions, although the country is not a signatory. And all these conventions deal with the role and appropriate behaviors of public officials. Some of the elements to be assessed are that the active subject of a crime are special subjects that we usually say that they benefit or get something out their participation in a negotiation process, operation, contract, or other type of exchange. And when you look at the Spanish Criminal Code of 1995, this was not mentioned, but in 2015, it was included that the official gained some sort of benefit. In Cuba, we took 10 years to rule as a behavior obtaining or gaining benefits, or not only getting information on a public negotiation or business. There's damage of the collective or general interest in favor of the private or particular interest. There is a conflict of interest between the private and public. Public administration impartiality is damaged or undermined. And in the given case, we don't talk about civil servants, but in previous legislation, we did have a definition for public officials. What we ban is to have officials taking part in a negotiation is to prevent them from getting any benefits from the negotiation they're a part of. So aside from that, we must also assess whether some of the processes for contracting or negotiation have been violated in order to determine whether we are in the presence of an illegal negotiation. There's also elements of judgment according to the standard, and the court can also issue a judgment. The legal good affected are those that hinder the administration. In the case of Cuba, the historical treatment for over 100 years, we have it as part of the Criminal Code of 1870, and it has undergone substantial variations. The most recent one is Decree Law 175 of 1997. It's Article 153.2. It reads that a public official or a servant that has to intervene in a contract negotiation, decision-making, business or operation takes advantage of that circumstance to gain personal benefit. When we, in Article 149 of the Civil, Economic and Administrative Procedures, when they go to the economic court, they are taken to the prosecutor's office, so they issue a decision. And in the civil law, in an article of 2012, in a contract, one of the early stages or the preliminary stages of negotiation, one of the parties could be damaged. Sometimes we go to court without exhausting all these previous standards that could recover the value or the worth of what has been affected. In praxis, there are several modalities. Usually, there's reference to bribery that perhaps should disappear because of its wording, but there is also acts that are contrary to economic activity, malfeasance, and illegal negotiations could be considered as actions leading to unlawful enrichment. If you look at the origin of that wealth, could be an illegal negotiation. This is a specific crime. One of the things to be discussed is the definition of public officials or civil servants, because the response is diluted and a number of individuals that don't hold public office are also covered by the current definition. So it is said that people working in joint ventures or other type of international economic associations respond to the interests of the corporate body, but when you look at it, technically they should not be considered public officials, but according to our concept, they are. Our legislation, different from others, does not see any sanction for public officials who intervene or take part on their own behalf in business. That's a public official that can own another business. That shouldn't be a crime, but still it is not provided under our law. And illegal business, the finality is that the agent taking part in a contract or a business as a public official, in most cases, is illegal because their behavior provokes an overlapping between the personal interest of the agent and the collective interest of the government or the state. If they take part in a contract negotiation or any kind of negotiation, that official cannot be unbiased and impartial. If they could act in favor of the government they represent, the official has benefited from his position to gain a personal benefit. The crime is consummated when they get a personal benefit as provided under the criminal code. The guiding verb is that they wish to get to have something they want, request, or deserve. And this could even be considered a crime, or even if it's not consummated. This crime has different forms, and it should be a separate type of crime. Today, it is only a section. Today, another characteristic is that it doesn't have the number of agents involved in other legislation where there is reference to accountants, representatives, agents, proxies, etc. And this, of course, responds to the category of public officials currently effective in Cuba. We consider that it should be the nature and the activity and not its link with the state or the government what characterize the public official. If we see it like that, those who are elected or appointed by the public administration should be considered public officials. From the Marxist viewpoint, the ultimate goal of criminal law is to ensure the legal safety as superior value of the effective legal order. The these should be observed as a guiding principle. The lack of legitimacy of the behavior of the official does not necessarily affect the validity of the business or the negotiation in which he took part, because the business may be quite valid and the inappropriate behavior of an official shall not invalidate the business. The definition of public officials should be redefined in order to more effectively combat this crime. One of the main ways to prevent illegal negotiations or businesses is to open legitimate bidding processes. We do have a decree law under the foreign investment law where the terms, the requirements are all provided, and that if this decree law is fully implemented, we could prevent this type of crime. But we must not forget or overlook the fact that others could take place, like the transfer of influences or the abuse of power, etc. In future amendments of the criminal code, we should include the administration leading or of business activities in cooperatives or corporations or other type of businesses while serving as a public official. These are some of the possible incorporations. They should intentionally contribute with their actions to grant a contract or operation for the benefit of a third party when there are better offers in the bidding. And we also have the case of public officials that run their own business. To conclude, we think that this crime, despite its past versions in previous legislation in Cuba, is a crime that is still not broadly studied or studied in depth, neither theoretically nor in the plane of the legal practice. For example, there was a case of embezzlement in the Cuban post office, and you could have also considered it an illegal business or negotiation, although it was more difficult to prove that there was a personal benefit gained by those involved in the crime. We need to determine what were the benefits and the income or the assets they currently have, and also determine whether that final benefit was attained as part of their participation in